I demand to be put in a seat that is able to recline. Some years back, I found myself on a lengthy flight from Los Angeles to Singapore, a journey exceeding 16 hours, being quite tall, around 6 feet 3 inches, 190 centimeters. Economy class seating is often a bit of a squeeze for me. Typically on most aircraft, my knees end up pressed right against the seat ahead. This situation usually prevents the person in front from reclining their seat, which generally isn't an issue as most people understand once they see the limited legroom I'm working with. However, on this particular journey, the gentleman in front of me was decidedly unimpressed. He attempted to recline his seat, but my legs were preventing it. He turned around, saw the situation, and asked with a hint of impatience, "Do you mind if I recline my seat?" I replied, explaining, "I wish I could, but it's physically impossible. I'll try to give you as much space as I can, but it won't be much, I'm afraid." At this point, his demeanor shifted to anger and he began forcefully pushing his seat back against my knees. This, as you can imagine, was far from comfortable. I asked him to stop, but he retorted, "I'll stop when I can recline my seat." I decided to simply wait him out, figuring he'd eventually tire of the effort. After a solid 10 to 15 minutes of this seat-pushing ordeal, he summoned a flight attendant and began demanding a different seat. The flight attendant informed him that there were no available seats and he would have to make do. He then insisted on speaking with the pilot. The flight attendant went to the cockpit to relay the situation. Throughout this entire exchange, he continued to press his seat back into my knees, only pausing briefly to berate the flight attendant. After a few minutes, the co-pilot returned. Apparently, the man's demand to speak to the pilot was not met with enthusiasm, and attempted to explain that a seat change was impossible due to the flight being fully booked in economy. The man persisted with his demands for a reclining seat, even suggesting I be upgraded, continuing to make a scene about the unacceptable situation. The co-pilot, seemingly at his wit's end, finally relented and addressing the man directly asked, "Sir, would you perhaps prefer to sit in business class?" The man immediately stood up, muttering something along the lines of, "Finally," to which the co-pilot sharply replied, "Sir, please sit down, I wasn't speaking to you." Turning to me, he repeated the offer. "How would you like a seat in business class?" To this day, I've never witnessed such incandescent rage as the look on that man's face as I walked past him to my new business class seat, complete with complimentary drinks. Talk about instant karma, demanding a seat so hard you get someone else upgraded to business class. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more entitled folks get exactly what they deserve. Apartment manager's no cash policy meets 2 cents bill. Malicious compliance ensues. Back in 2019, upon relocating from an apartment complex in Celebration, Florida to a condo, I went through the usual move-out process. This included receiving a final bill, which typically covers prorated rent for the last month, deductions for any damages, and security deposit refunds. We promptly settled the amount. To our surprise, the following month, my wife received another bill in the mail from the apartment management company, this time for a mere $0.02. Being in the tech industry, we couldn't help but chuckle at the irony of a company spending $0.50 on postage to chase after a $0.02 bill to debt. However, these things happen. My wife printed out the bill and I grabbed 2 pennies from our change jar. Since the apartment complex was conveniently located on my daily commute, I decided to stop by the office to settle this minuscule debt in person. I walked in, approached the manager, and stated my intention to pay my outstanding final bill. "It's for 2 cents. I explained, presenting the bill. "Here are the 2 cents if you'd like to take them." The manager's response was a curt, "We don't take cash." No further explanation, just that statement. An awkward silence filled the air. I attempted to inject some levity into the situation, saying, "I wasn't really expecting you to accept cash, more that we could share a laugh about the quirks of computer systems and you'd simply write off the 2 cents, considering the processing cost would far outweigh the amount." Her reply was a flat, "I'm not going to do that." Another awkward pause ensued. I then inquired, "So you're suggesting I write you a check for 2 cents and mail it in, and you're actually going to process a check for 2 cents? The manager confirmed, "Yes, send us a check and we'll process it." And then to effectively end the conversation, she turned and walked back into her office. Undeterred, I returned home and set up an automatic monthly bank payment to the apartment complex. However, I made the payment for hot 3 cents, just to be slightly more annoying. And because I'm a programmer with a penchant for automation, I wrote a simple script to generate and mail a physical letter once a month stating, "I am writing to inform you that I have overpaid my bill. Please send me a check for the overpayment of 1 cent. To maximize the petty annoyance, I utilized an online postcard service that offered comically large postcard sizes, up to 18 by 24 inches, envisioning this as my escalation strategy. The first day of the following month, I received a call from the apartment company's regional manager. After a formal introduction, he launched into the most sincere and apologetic speech imaginable, spanning nearly 2 minutes, essentially pleading, "Oh God, we made a mistake. Please stop this. We will never contact you again." I agreed to cease the mailings, and true to his word, I never heard from them again. Did I dedicate several hours to this act of malicious compliance over a mere 2 cents? Yes, was it worth it? Absolutely. Ordered to hide tampons to avoid offending male coworkers? Consider it done. To set the stage, I'm employed in a busy healthcare setting where time is of the essence. My team includes both male and female colleagues. We have lockers with opaque doors to store our personal items. For convenience, when I'm in the office area, I leave my locker unlocked. I've started keeping a box of tampons in my locker for easy access. I've also made it clear to my female coworkers that if they're ever in a pinch and need a tampon, they're welcome to grab one from my locker when it's unlocked and I'm present. No problem at all. The other day I was summoned to my boss's office. Apparently Kanki, a male coworker, had lodged a complaint, finding the tampons in my locker disgusting and expressing his displeasure at seeing the box whenever my locker was open. My boss, also a male, informed me that some men are really sensitive to this sort of thing and suggested I conceal the tampons in a different type of box to avoid causing offense. I questioned the logic, pointing out that coworkers would still witness someone reaching into a crackers, Pop-Tarts, etc. box and retrieving a tampon instead of a snack, and my boss became flustered, insisted it was for the best, went out and directed me to comply. Well, if that's how it's going to be, fine. I created a special cover for my tampon box. It read, "Mother Earth's Bloody Nutrients Bars," with extra gooey, nutritious filling. To complete the visual, I added a picture of a rather graphic bloody bathtub scene and placed it on the box. That was just 2 days ago. I happened to see the male coworker surreptitiously peek into my locker. His face visibly paled as he read the box cover. He looked furious. Shortly after, I received an email from my boss stating that my cover wasn't funny and demanding I remove it. So, I forwarded the email to our HR representative along with a summary of the events and photos of the lockers, the box, and the offending cover. I also cheekily suggested that if my locker's contents were so disturbing, perhaps the male coworker could be relocated to a spot out of direct line of sight. To my surprise and amusement, the HR rep found the whole situation hilarious. She confirmed that I had followed my supervisor's instructions and that, as far as she was concerned, I was in the clear. As of now, nothing further has transpired. My primary frustration stems from the fact that my time and energy were diverted to such a ridiculous matter, taking away from actual patient care. Edit. Thank you all immensely for the support and the awards. I've meticulously documented everything, and I'm encouraging my colleagues, both male and female, to do the same should they encounter similar issues. HR is now fully aware of the situation and has informed me that several individuals have come forward with similar experiences, prompting an internal investigation. Hopefully this will lead to some positive changes. Mother Earth's bloody nutrient bars. I am deceased. That is the perfect malicious compliance response to such a ridiculous request. Demanded cameras be on no matter what? Fine. Meet my breast pump. As a project manager and data scientist, my work involves overseeing numerous public health projects. One particular project stands out thanks to the exceptionally demanding team from a federal government department we collaborate with. Recently, I returned to work after maternity leave. My work arrangement involves being in the office 3 days a week. On those days, I need to pump breast milk at regular intervals for my baby. Fortunately, I have a private office which usually allows me to continue working, catching up on emails, writing reports, etc., while pumping. I use a hands-free wearable breast pump, which is incredibly convenient. However, it's still quite noticeable when I'm wearing it. It protrudes slightly from my shirt and isn't exactly silent in operation. Recently, a Zoom call was scheduled during one of my pumping times. Rather than miss the meeting, I thought I'd simply keep my camera off. This way, I could use my pump, participate, and listen without disruption. Considering I was physically present in my office, not working from home, I felt I was being a pretty dedicated employee. The meeting commenced and I noticed a few participants had their cameras off. The lead then made an announcement. I just want to remind everyone that our expectation is that you will have their cameras on. This is not a virtual meeting. It is a simulated in-person meeting. Whatever that means, I thought. I quickly sent a private message explaining that I was attentive but needed to pump, hence the camera being off. There was no direct response to my message. Instead, the lead simply reiterated, again, the expectation is that all cameras will be on. So fine. If cameras on is the unwavering rule, cameras on it is. I turned my camera on for this meeting of about 20 people. While I didn't aim the camera directly at my chest, the top of my breast pump was undeniably visible. I also unmuted myself, ensuring the distinct sound of the pump was clearly audible, and stated, "Thank you for your patience, I was just adjusting my breast pump." The meeting proceeded. Noticeably more awkwardly, several other team managers privately messaged me to say it was perfectly acceptable to turn my camera off, but at that point, there seemed little point in doing so. At our most recent meeting, the announcement regarding cameras had subtly shifted. It was now, "Please turn on your cameras if you are comfortable doing so." Mic drop moment. I bet that camera policy changed real quick after that meeting. Speak English, this is country. A taste of their own medicine. A friend of mine who is of Vietnamese descent frequently encounters the irritating phrase, "Speak English, you're in America." This constant barrage of xenophobic remarks became increasingly tiresome for him, prompting him to take action. He researched the indigenous tribe, whose ancestral lands encompass his current residence. He then visited the tribe's cultural center and spoke with an elderly woman working there. He explained his frustration with being constantly told to speak English in America and asked her to teach him how to say white person, outsider, non-native in their language, along with a few choice curse words for good measure. Apparently, this request delighted the elder, who enthusiastically embraced the opportunity and provided him with a comprehensive linguistic lesson. Now, whenever someone with racist inclinations tells him to speak English in America, he retorts with, "Nyal, well, why don't you speak indigenous language name? We're on indigenous tribe name land. You, indigenous language, word for outsider." He recounts that the look of utter shock and bewilderment he receives in response is perpetually amusing. His antagonists typically freeze, momentarily speechless, before reacting in various entertaining ways, ranging from sputtering indignantly to pointing accusingly, or simply turning tail and walking away in a huff. Word of this effective counter tactic spread among our circle of friends. Many of them, being immigrants or multilingual individuals who occasionally face similar prejudice remarks, are now eager to employ this response themselves. Each successful deployment of this retort is met with gleeful announcements among our group, and the humor of the situation never diminishes. I wasn't entirely sure where best to share this story, but it seemed to fit the spirit of malicious compliance, taking the racist's own flawed logic and turning it back on them in a way that clearly gets under their skin. What creative ways have you all devised to flip the script on prejudiced individuals? Talk about a taste of their own medicine. Responding in the indigenous language is the ultimate power move. What is the most satisfying malicious compliance move you've ever seen? No personal calls during work hours. You didn't say anything about video calls. My company, a mid-sized marketing firm, recently rolled out a new workplace policy that management touted as being about professionalism and focus. The key point buried in a lengthy email from HR was a strict ban on personal phone calls during work hours. The email emphasized that personal calls were a distraction and should be handled during breaks or after work. Fair enough, I thought, even though occasionally a quick call to the doctor's office or bank is unavoidable. However, the enforcement of this policy became immediately draconian. Our floor manager, a stickler for rules named Barry, began patrolling the office like a hawk. Ears perked for any phone conversations that weren't strictly work-related. Colleagues were pulled aside for hushed but stern lectures if caught making or receiving personal calls. Even during short lulls in their workload, the atmosphere became noticeably tense, and the office chatter, once lively, dwindled to near silence. Now, I had a rather complicated issue brewing with my bank regarding a mortgage refinancing application. It required multiple lengthy conversations to resolve discrepancies and provide necessary documentation. Trying to handle this during my lunch break proved impossible. Hold times were atrocious, and the bank representatives often needed more than a snatched 10 minutes to address my queries. Waiting until after work meant dealing with even longer hold times and often missing the bank's operating hours altogether. This was a genuine, pressing personal matter that needed to be dealt with during business hours. Remembering the letter of the new policy, specifically the focus on phone calls, an idea sparked in my mind. The policy said nothing about video calls. So, the next time I needed to contact the bank, instead of picking up my phone, I fired up my laptop and initiated a video call via our company's internal video conferencing platform. I made sure to use my headset, keeping the audio clear but contained. My first video call was with my insurance company to clarify some policy details. I chose a relatively quiet corner of the open plan office, positioned my laptop strategically, and launched the call. Barry, of course, noticed the laptop screen illuminated with a video call interface. He approached, a familiar frown forming on his face. He was clearly expecting a reprimandable phone call. Before he could speak, I preemptively said, in a voice loud enough for nearby colleagues to hear, "Just on a quick video conference with insurance, Barry. Need to sort out a claim. It's all hands free, and I'm still monitoring my emails, of course." Barry blinked, his frown faltering. He couldn't exactly object. I wasn't on a phone call. I was technically in a video conference. He mumbled something about keeping it brief and retreated. Emboldened, I continued this tactic for all my personal but necessary communications. Doctor's appointments, video call, bank queries, video call, chatting with my elderly mother to check on her, video call. I even started scheduling these video conferences in my online calendar, labeling them descriptively, urgent video conference, bank, mortgage refinancing, or important video conference, doctor appointment scheduling. The office became a surreal landscape of hushed whispers and the soft glow of laptop screens displaying various personal video calls. Colleagues started catching on, some even adopting the tactic themselves, albeit with more discreet subject matter. The absurdity of the situation was palpable, and the initial stifling silence began to be replaced by suppressed giggles and knowing glances. Barry, meanwhile, was visibly flustered. He couldn't point to any policy violation. He had created a rule about phone calls, and we were all meticulously avoiding them, replacing them with something arguably even more distracting and definitely more visually disruptive. The office had transformed from a quiet, focused workspace into a bizarre pantomime of personal video conferences, all in the name of adhering to the letter of the no personal calls policy. The policy was quietly revised a week later to ban all personal communications that are disruptive to the work environment. By then, however, the point had been brilliantly and perhaps a little maliciously complied with. Barry got absolutely barricaded by video calls. This is peak malicious compliance. Smash that like and subscribe button if you want more stories of people sticking it to the man, and have a great rest of your day.